Hello everyone, welcome back. It's another episode of Professor Drew's Lab. Apologies for the silence last week. But we're back. We're back. So hopefully you guys had a chance to watch the newest session. Don't worry, we're not going to be discussing anything that goes on in there. And please be respectful in the comments of this one. For, a couple of weeks, give people a chance to watch the new one. Just because it's been a little bit doesn't mean everybody's ready to watch it all at once. But you had some questions and some designs of a Scarab-Ariados, however you guys say it. So we're going to look at a couple of those, but first we're going to tackle some questions. Starting us off strong. Shiro Miyazaki. The mentioning of held items, specifically the assault vest, got me thinking about struggle. Is there struggle in your setting? I don't think you have power points, and assault vest was the first time I've heard about preventing a move from being used in a Pokemon setting. No, I don't have struggle in the rules, at least not so far. I've thought about it for if you're in a situation where rules as written, like your opponent just completely resists everything you could do. I've thought about giving every creature the equivalent of like a tackle, where you could do like force damage, but it might like have recoil. But the logistics of it are difficult, and it's only happened one time ever, and it was for the benefit of the player. So I haven't really been worried about it. But no, I don't have struggle in there. I do have a couple moves that prevent you from doing certain things, but I try to avoid the really powerful like action economy limiting effects from like more traditional 5e games. Something like a Tasha's Mind Whip or a Slow. I try to avoid those where I can, and really just stick to keeping combat a little bit punchier and a little bit more fun for the players. I don't really like those like save or your turn sucks kind of effects. But let's move on down. How did the transformation of Red Puppy work? Who is now Fang. So Fang is the proud recipient of a rebirth rune or a regeneration rune. And we'll maybe get into those a little bit. I have to kind of walk carefully when we talk about runes and stuff, because I haven't really given an in-game explanation of them. So I really want to leave the door open for everybody to explore those on their own. But the important thing to know about the rebirth rune is it resets you to a prior state, but can also, it is a literal rebirth. So much like a phoenix or something, you would come back, and you might be more than you were before. So that's how Fang's transformation worked. So I won't cover exactly like what's going on there, but that's the idea behind it. I also want to know more about Pollen. The one from episode 88 is the same as the one from Ragnarok, right? What is he in the TOTS campaign? What does he do? And is he still with his Jellicent friends? So that was me exploring the Astral Sea in the TOTS timeline, I guess. That is the same Pollen from Ragnarok, but he is not in the same world that he left from Ragnarok. I like the idea that Pollen just went on and continued adventuring because he came back and everything was done. So he just came back, continued adventuring, and occasionally just yeets himself into the Astral Sea and pops in like an unseeable spectrum, like a fourth dimensional being, and on occasion a couple kids have the ability to see into, like the ethereal realm and stuff, and they just kind of bump into him. But as far as like what does he do, mostly he just vibes out in the Astral Sea. I like to think he still has his Jellicent friends. Hopefully that makes sense. Moving on down, same for Remy. I really would like to know more about him. I think I remember he won a tournament. Does he have any other achievements? Has he ever considered becoming a gym leader? What are his current goals? Let's start there. There's a little bit more to this question, but we'll start there. So Remy is a professional battler. He completed the gym circuit, attempted the league challenge, and fell short. But he has never considered becoming a gym leader because he doesn't want to tie himself down. He doesn't want to settle in. He's much more of a philanthropist than we sort of set out to make him. But it just kind of worked that way, and I really, really like Remy. But But yes, Remy has won many of like a stadium style Coliseum-esque championship. He's done a lot of those. But no, he's never really been the gym leader type. He is much more helping people, making sure his town stays afloat is a weird word for a town that's literally like built on a river, but I mean in like the metaphorical sense. He's trying to make sure that everybody has what they need because he has the power and the influence to help them get it. He is sort of my ideal of what someone in that station could and should do. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. He's much more the unofficial mayor of Wadalonga, and he's quite happy there. But the second part of your question, the Guardian Feraligatr used to be his partner, if I remember correctly. Do they still meet, or did they completely separate? It was his partner. They don't meet often, but they do on occasion, I would imagine. When Remy can sneak away and the Feraligatr can sneak away, they probably rendezvous to catch up on old times. Piggybacking off of that, what is the difference between him and Jax, who called himself a Guardian and stayed with Ares, the Typhlosion? So there's a little bit of a weird word issue that I had in that time, in that Ares was the Firestone Guardian, and Jax was his trainer. So when Jax says, I was a Guardian and I failed, he's kind of speaking on behalf of Ares, which is a bit of weirdness that I probably should have clarified in the session. So Jax himself is not a Guardian, but he knows how these things work. So that's kind of a weirdness there. Where Remy would say his Feraligatr is the Guardian. He would separate himself from it and say, no, my partner went on to become Guardian. I was a vessel to get him strong. We helped each other along the way. We had some great adventures. And then they both basically retired. So Remy now just kind of chills, runs the Cajun Croconaut, keeps Wadalonga nice and happy and fed. Piggybacking off that again, Remy also had an arrow tattoo. Yes, he did. If yes, how is his relationship to the others with the tattoos, especially the gym leaders? What did he do when everything froze? So that's everybody's question. What did everybody do when everything froze? A lot of the sort of off-screen members of the sort of Arrow gang, as we'll call them for now, knew what was going on and decided it was best to stay put and help the people around them as best they could. Wadalonga is especially susceptible. The entire town is on a river. When everything freezes, it's kind of a problem. It's an important note. They also have the incredibly powerful figure of the Rainmaker watching over them. So it's entirely possible that Wadalonga wasn't affected as heavily. But hard to say. But yes, he did have an arrow tattoo. All of the folks with an arrow tattoo are at least familiar with one another. They might not be like best pals, but they are definitely business associates. So I'll leave it there for now. I can't say too much about that group. There's a lot of questions about those that I have to dance around very nicely. But could Milo at some point meet Howl again? Hard to say, because I don't know. Hold, please. The dog has flipped the food bowl in protest. All right. We're going to jump on down now to Blue Creeper. Blue Creeper has a few questions, mostly related to scale, how big things are and how big they are in relation to other things. So let's jump into those. How big is the Laris region? In my mind, it's sort of like a Europe analog type deal in terms of scale. The southern quadrant of the Laris region, which is where this is taking place, is roughly the size of like... God, I don't know. If we want to put it into a more reasonable scale, it's probably the size of like Texas, if we're being honest. It's not that large. The entire region as a whole, if you encompass like everything that we've never talked about, it's a lot closer to probably a region like Spain. I'm doing this like that means anything, but yeah, the Laris region that we're playing in is probably the size of like Texas. You could walk from one corner of it to the other in about 3 weeks. I don't know if you could do that in Texas, but that's in my mind's eye, that's kind of what I see. Hopefully that kind of made sense. The short answer is I don't really know. It's as big as it needed to be. How big is Alluvia compared to real-life cities? It's probably on par with a New York or a Los Angeles analog if you go to like core city centers. It's very much so they built up and not out. How big is the forest separating the Laris region from the capital area? It is 30 miles thick at its narrowest point. And it stretches all the way across literally from seaboard to seaboard. That forest strip kind of encompasses everything. And we talk about it a little bit in the world building for the War of the Architects game. I talk about it a lot there. How big are... Wait, we'll do this one at a time. How big is Crash? Crash is currently like a medium plus creature. He's roughly 7 feet tall, ripped as heck. He can absolutely carry CJ on his back and like run and sprint and swim. Hello, friend. Hello. This is my friend, by the way. This is why I've been so busy. Yes, Crash is a medium creature, but I count him as a large creature in terms of carrying capacity, because there's a couple weird rules for stuff like that. New and improved Nipsey is a medium creature, but barely. Nipsey went from tiny to medium, but is still on the smaller side of medium, so Nipsey could not carry anyone, but is quite large for what they are. Howl is the size of like a Great Dane. Like a very, very large dog. Unlike this one, this is a very, very small dog. And Claremont is ripped as heck, dude. Claremont is over 6 feet tall, could absolutely carry probably 2 or 3 of the tots at one time without breaking a sweat. He's a big guy. Hi. And then how big is Phoebe's Mansion key? It's not that large. It is not cumbersome or obnoxious. It has no weight. It is bound to her. She can make it appear and disappear at will. That way she doesn't have to track it. But it's roughly the size of like a traditional old-timey manor key. So probably like 3-4 inches long. Okay. Hi. Okay. Let's move on down though. Let's keep things moving. Blue Creeper, you got one more not related to the scale of things. Will the Xanthan Pokemon move to the new desert area? I haven't thought about it. If we go back to Xantha, I will be quite interested to explore in a design space what it looks like when you re-terraform an area. So I'm very excited. But I do love your name of calling it the Howling Sands. That is very, very cool. And who knows? They might do that. I would let the Tots name it, but if they go with that, absolutely we'll put your name on the credits, because that's very cool. That's a cool name. Okay, Mario Lee. How do you do the base stat conversion of Pokemon to D&D stats, especially for pre-Evos whose base stats are terrible because they are the early stages? I do a lot of math. I take the base stats and just try to do as one-to-one a conversion as you can. HP would be Constitution. Attack, depending on the Pokemon, would either be Intelligence, Wisdom, Dexterity, or Strength, depending on what you're going for. Special attack, usually I limit to Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma. Again, it depends on the Pokemon. Defense is odd because they have defense and speed as 2 different stats, but for D&D 5e, Dexterity covers both. So I try to, in a way that doesn't completely break everything, average out their speed and their defense to make their armor class. Tiny creatures, obviously, if they have a super high speed, I still limit their movement speed because they're tiny. So fast as they may be, they're not necessarily like breaking any land speed records. But yeah, that's I think that's pretty much it. Special defense is just an average of Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma all smushed together. Do a little math on there. I won't give you the entire Keys to the Kingdom, but the way that I do it is if they have a base stat of 50, then their base stat in the D&D stat block is 10. And then every 5 up or down, you adjust accordingly. So hopefully that's vague enough to keep us safe, and then overt enough that you guys can kind of figure out how we do it. And I mean, you guys could probably reverse engineer any of the Pokemon that we've done for these. But let's move on down. We have a quick and easy question from Nathan Bashor. If you could live anywhere in the Laris region, where would it be and why? Wadalonga. The food sounds incredible and there's whoopers everywhere. There's no place I'd rather be. That sounds awesome. Alright. Couple questions out of Fire of Hades today. I was wondering how you go about determining the area for weather effects. Like if you were to do a rain dance, what is the limit of the space it takes up? Does it depend on the power of the Pokemon? For the TOTS game right now, yeah, it just depends on the power of the Pokemon. A lot of them are like 10, 15 foot radius deals. I do have a better idea in the future of how I would have done this. So if we do another game, I definitely have a better way of doing it. But for now, it's kind of just an arbitrary choice. I try to pick a weather radius that's not busted, that's also not completely shutting down your allies that aren't benefiting from it. So if you do a rain dance and there's a fire type out, if it's like 100-foot radius rainstorm, your fire teammates are gonna be like, dude, what the heck? please stop doing the one thing that you want to do. But yeah, it's right now. My new idea is basically you take the proficiency bonus and you do a little bit of math. But I don't know. That's untested, so I'll leave that on the cutting room floor for now. And another one from Fire of Hades. Did Desmond come about because of what he injected in himself as he was falling off the bat, or was that a different lackey? So I'm not going to ruin the mystery. There's a large contingent of folks that believe that Dunlock became Desmond. There's a large contingent of people that think there's no relation. I'm just going to leave it that way. Enjoy the mystery, folks. Don't worry about it. Alright, but let's move on down. Last time we did a lab video, we made a Scarab Style Spinnerack out in the desert. And I kicked it to you guys to make a Scarab Evo for the Ariados. So let's look at what you guys did. Just in case, because I haven't cleared it with anybody, I'm not going to put the information you guys sent up on the screen. They are in the comment section below. They're in the Discords as well. If you guys are in those various locations, go ahead and check out what these guys did. I'm going to kind of gloss over stuff because I don't want to directly like yoink your stuff and throw it up here, but I do want to talk about it because you guys had some phenomenal ideas. Starting off, we have Reptile Xeno, said for Scarab-Ariados, based on how we designed the Spinnerack. It would kind of morph into a low dex, high strength bug and focus on grappling, which is exactly kind of where I was headed too. So I'm very happy to see that kind of came through, as that's what most ground burrowing spiders do. We're jumping back into the comment. I also think it would be a cool feature to be carrying some Scarab Spinneracks, like how a mother scorpion would carry its babies, meaning it could also hunt Scarab Spinnerack if it was hungry. That terrifies me because I used to work at a pet store and we sold scorpions and they'd have the little babies on their back and they're just so gross. Ah! Just absolutely terrifying. But yes, I love where that one's headed. Burrowing spider is absolutely what we were shooting for. Jumping down, which is also jumping back up to Nathan Bashor, also says Scarab-Ariados should have a proper Egyptian scorpion design. Couldn't agree more. Love that. Solitary hunters, absolutely. They sit upturned under the ground and they drag their meal down to meet them. Absolutely love it. Perfect. Matthew Turner, my friend, you put in the legwork, my guy. Anybody that is curious on the entirety of this breakdown, go check out the comments of the last lab video. Matthew Turner, 10 gold stars, my friend. For the Scarab-Ariados, you would make it a mix of trapdoor and funnel spiders and make it nasty, because Ariados was the first Pokemon to be a real threat in the TOTS campaign. You're exactly right, my friend, which is kind of why I was so excited to sort of dive in and see how you guys would handle it. So first, it would abandon the swarm attribute, exactly, because they're going to be rare. Love it. You mentioned there only being 2 to 3 swarms in Xantha, so I imagine there would be 1 Ariados for each full swarm. The AC would jump way up, the HP jumps way up. Totally agree. Again, for all of these videos, just in case, when we do the evolutions and stuff, I put an arbitrary amount of HP for the middle and last stages if they have multiple evolutions, because HP varies by encounter and by Pokemon. But I love when you guys do your calculations, because I can see where your thought process is, and a lot of times it's eerily similar to mine. But I'm getting distracted. The HP would jump way up because this thing is supposed to be a boss or mini boss for like level 4 to 5. I like that. I like that idea. All stats would jump up by 2. Dex would jump up by 3. It isn't going to have a multi-attack. Okay. You know what? I agree. I really like Pokemon that have like one really strong hit instead of like a bunch of little ones. But I tend to design Pokemon with a bunch of little attacks, and then I have to deal with them forever. Okay, but let's move on. You've adjusted some moves. It's adding modifiers to damage so that the floor of damage is much higher. Dig gets new attributes from you. Gets an additional die of damage if you have advantage on the attack, making it like an ambush predator. Absolutely love it. There's a save or be paralyzed when it bites you and has you in place. Love it. If you're paralyzed, the Ariados can drag you 10 feet underground. That's terrifying. That is a nightmare. Bulldoze gets a knockback so that when it has you, it can kind of like push you away and like pull your friends just into the abyss, which is terrifying. Leech Life stays pretty similar, but again, a lot of the HP restoration moves aren't meant to like fully heal you every hit. They just kind of keep you in the fight, so I agree with where you're headed on Leech Life. We jump on down. Sandweb really just becomes like this big setup move that you can do, and I love that. I love that for this Ariados. It's very cool. We jump on down. You've got the web. If they break the web in the cave that you've built, the whole thing collapses and like kind of crushes and restrains everybody. That's terrifying. I would be absolutely horrified if I ran into one of these in the wild. But I'm also not that keen on like spiders in general, so I would just be scared. But jumping on down, the abilities, you have taken Sandwalker and run with it in a beautiful, beautiful way. You gave it immunity to its own webbing, which is perfect. I think I forgot to put that on the spinner rack. They do have web walk. There's a couple like weird implied things that I do in design and that I don't explain to anybody, but I'm glad that you picked up on it and did it because that's amazing. And again, you did a phenomenal job on this entire thing, and I'm glossing through it, which is criminal. So please go check it out. It's awesome. It's great. It's in the comments section of the last one. Let's go take a look at it if you want a really cool jumping off point. You also gave it Sand Veil, kind of like a rogue or a monk's evasion. Love that, dude. Love that. And then you gave it stealth, deception, and intimidation to kind of like hide in the desert. It's perfect. But it absolutely, I agree with you, it would make an extremely useful but situational like special ops Pokemon, which is exactly my jam. If I was ever a player, I'd love utility spells in D&D. So any kind of like crazy niche, super useful Pokemon, that's my jam. My favorite combo in D&D is Grease Color Spray. Grease the floor, color spray, you run, they're blinded, they try to chase you, grease. Love it. So anything close to that is amazing. Like the web spell is also just phenomenal. And we're going to dive on down one more of these builds. Again, you guys did a ton of them. I would love to cover all of them, but I just grabbed all the ones out of the YouTube comment section. And then I wanted to make sure and grab Sayros out of the Discord because this whole operation was your idea, Sayro. You were the one that asked. So let's talk about what you did. You're keeping Sandwalker as an ability name, but you didn't really come up with a crushing concept for the burrowing. Yeah, because I have if you burrow underground and you stay down there, you start to kind of get crushed. That's me solving a problem I've never had in a game, which is a player manipulating their movement speed to make it so that a monster couldn't ever hit them. So burrow and fly speeds in like 5e games tend to be an issue, and I hear a lot of horror stories from other DMs, but thankfully my players have never done that to me, so I've never had to worry about it. But I do try to think about those when I go in here, so that's why I have that little burrow clause in there. But I'm glad that you drop it because you have faith in your players, and so do I. Beautiful. I'm rambling. Instead of straight ground immunity burrowed, you'd have the ability to give ground and fire resistance regardless of if it's burrowed. Love that. Add the stipulation that ground doesn't do bonus damage while burrowed. Totally fine as well. That's another decision. Here's another ramble. Another decision for like bulldoze, earthquake, anything that affects everybody underground. It's the same deal. I needed a way for if they're fighting a burrowed enemy or they're fighting each other and something's burrowed or whatever, any situation like that, and you have one of those moves to kind of be able to punish them. Because usually it's also a weird quirk in some of the later gens, I think. I might be remembering wrong. I do that a lot. But if a Pokemon uses Dig and you use Earthquake, you basically just ravage them because you're underground and the earth starts shaking and compacts you. So that's kind of the avenue I was going there. But I love taking that, dropping it, adding it back in, whatever you want to do, man. Keeping the stealth advantage, but going to adapt to desert environments. Beautiful. Move-wise, you're usually running more Bulkymons, that the moves are universal, and the abilities edit beyond that. I agree. I do tend to... The Scarab Spinnerack is a good example of how I do design, where the ability is absolutely insane and homebrew, and then the attacks are pretty mundane, with like one or two exceptions. Keeping Leech Life makes sense. Add Sticky Web on top of Sand Web, and throw Ancient Power on there as well. Love that. That's a great idea. A lot of you guys agree. Dropping the Swarm when they evolve. Perfect. It's exactly what we were going for, so I'm kind of glad to see that you guys kind of picked that up and ran with it. It's very good. And then we jump into some stat conversations, which I agree with, but again, I won't bog you guys down with all the details on there because it's a lot of just numbers. But you guys did a phenomenal job. Trust me. Like, everybody had great ideas. You guys were all on a similar page with me of where I would take it, so I'm really glad to see that. There's a bunch more of these in both the comments and the Discord, but in short of making this like a 45-minute video, we're going to jump on down and we're going to handle another Pokemon build request. We're going to do the Elekid line. Now this one, special shout out to Magiciantronic. I know you didn't ask for this one, but I know how much you love this guy. So let's take a look at these guys. As far as abilities go, Elekid starts out, they have Static, they have Vital Spirit. So Static is easy. I have it when you've seen the Mareep by now, I'm assuming. You hit the Pokemon, you take damage back. It hurts. The dog needs to go outside. Pardon me. Let's see. So other than Static, Elekid can also have Vital Spirit, where the Pokemon can't fall asleep. I usually would let them be immune to the sleeping and now the drowsy condition, if you guys use that for your games. And they don't require sleep to complete a long rest. They're kind of like any of those warlocks or elves or something. You just do light activity over your long rest, which is kind of neat. Let's see. Move-wise, I would slam on something like a Thunder Punch. I do like a D6 damage, not that much to hit. Again, it is a baby Pokemon. But I tend to, for these guys, if they have a melee attack, I do one incremented die up. So instead of a D4, it'd be a D6. So if you're in melee range, you get rewarded. But moving on to the next move, I would throw a Thunder Shock on there as well to give them some range. 10, maybe 15 feet to start so that you have room to grow. Same bonus to hit, but 1d4 electric damage because you're doing it at a range. And now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of kind of how I've designed this Elekid in a way I think you guys might get a kick out of. So we have Charge. As an action, you get a +1 to your attack rolls for a minute, and the effect can stack up to 3 times. Because you're a baby and you have a +3 to hit, you can get it up to a +6 as long as you've got the time. I might even let them stack it up to 6 times if you want to go closer to the sort of game route. You could even add +1 to attack rolls and damage on electric type attacks. Dealer's choice. But I focused more on Discharge. So as an action, everybody within 5 feet of you, they got to make a dex save or they take 1d4 electric damage. But you can expend your charge stacks into Discharge. So you can build up a charge, rub your socks on the carpet, and then Static Shock somebody. That's kind of where we're at for Elekid, because it's not going to do that much damage. Um, it's got a pretty low, reasonable AC of 11, 8 hit points, 2 proficiency bonus. Strength and Dex are sitting at 13, Cons at 10, Intelligence at 13, Wisdom of 10, Charisma of 12, because it's a little cutie. It's just a little baby plug. But we jump on down. Let's say our Elekid evolves. We have Static stays the same, Vital Spirit stays the same. You would just increase the proficiency bonus electric damage that you're taking when you hit them. We jump on down. Thunder Punch is now 1d8 electric damage. We have Thunderbolt is now 1d8 electric damage, because we're not a baby anymore. This is an Electabuzz. Depending on your setting, there might not be an Elekid, there might not be an Electivire. So I like to make these sort of standalone fellas. So your Magmars, your Electabuzz, I like to make them functional as a standalone Pokemon, just in case, because you never know. You might just want one of these guys. So I also designed this guy with the same sort of charge-discharge idea in mind. So we have... Oh, here's where I've designed myself again. So, Electabuzz keeps static, but the proficiency bonus would jump up to 3. Vital Spirit, same deal. You don't have to sleep, and you don't sleep on long rests if you're out of a ball. You've got Thunder Punch. We've gone up to a +6 to hit because the strength and the intelligence have gone up. So Thunder Punch and Thunderbolt are now both same bonus to hit. They both deal 1d8 electric damage. Thunder Punch is melee. Thunderbolt now has a 15-foot range. Charge, as an action, gain a +1 to attack and damage rolls for a minute. So we've evolved. Elekid is now stronger. We now have that damage bonus. Again, I have it up to 3 times. I would have no problem jumping it up to 6. I just can't imagine a situation where a player would have 6 full rounds of combat to kind of charge up. And maybe that's a design flaw, but that's just on first pass. Discharge, same deal. Everybody within 10 feet of you now, though. But all hostile creatures, you can spare your friends. They got to make a dex save or they take 1d6 electric damage. You can expend all of your stacks of charge to add +3 to the damage for each charge stack. You might be wondering how come the damage die is so low. In the new system that we've got, there's a lot of ways to augment damage. So everybody in here is just going to be very basic and unmodified. But don't worry, I had the same problem. I was a little worried too when I saw the damage dice, but it's okay. It's been very difficult for me to redesign all the Pokemon to not deal like 10d10 fighting damage on a Karate Chop for like a Machoke. But I'm trying very hard. Okay, our AC jumps up to 12. We've got an arbitrary 48 hit points, a +3 proficiency bonus, a strength of 16, dexterity of 14, constitution of 13, intelligence of 17, wisdom of 16, charisma of 13, and a 30-foot move speed. We jump up to a medium-sized creature. Yeah, Electabuzz has some pretty solid stats all around. It's a very good all-rounder on the old video game side. So tried to kind of keep that. And depending on your setting, your Electabuzz may someday evolve into an Electivire. So let's talk about that guy for a minute. We drop static in favor of motor drive. So when this Pokemon takes electric type damage, instead increase its movement speed by 10 feet, and it gains a +1 to attack rolls for 1 minute. That's usually how I'm handling speed ups now, is you get a movement speed bonus and your attack bonus goes up. Not your damage, but because you're faster, you're probably more likely to hit your target because you're outspeeding them. Whether or not that sort of makes sense in the video game side, it's kind of how I've been handling it over here. It seems to be working okay. We keep Vital Spirit, but we jump from Thunder Punch into Volt Tackle, where we have a sizable bonus to hit. So +9, and we deal 1d12 electric damage in a 5-foot range. If you move at least 10 feet before you attack, double your damage dice. So you do 2d12 instead. So that's kind of like having the Charger feat, basically. For Volt Tackle, Flare Blitz, any move like that, I usually put a stipulation. If you run towards your target, you get a benefit to it. But it's not always feasible, because if you do attacks of opportunity, you run in, you hit them, you take recoil, you run back, they get to hit you, then you run out and you do the same thing. So if you want to do that extra damage, you're going to get punished for it. But if you've got a bunch of buddies all around, you can kind of coordinate and do some good stuff. Let's jump on down. We have Shockwave. Has a +8 to hit because I'm scaling this one off of the intelligence, which we'll cover in a second. We've got 1d12 electric damage, same deal, 30-foot range. So very, very long range, but you can't really increase the damage on that in its own description. And now here is where things get a little spooky. So now we have charge, but instead of getting a +1, we're getting a +2 to attack and damage rolls. Can stack up to 3 times. This one I would probably limit to 3, even if I had 6 for the others, because a +6 in a stat is the same as getting a +2 3 times, you know? Thunder. We drop discharge in favor of thunder. So all hostile creatures within 15 feet of you must succeed a dexterity saving throw or take 1d8 electric damage. You can expend all of your stacks of charge to add +4 to the damage for each charge stack expended. Doing so removes the charge stacks. For these abilities in testing, I would probably say it's save or take half once you hit Electabuzz. Because, or maybe they guaranteed take the charge stacks just to kind of incentivize this playstyle. That's sort of something I'd be thinking about. But we jump our AC up to 13. We get another arbitrary hit point jump to 68. We have a +4 proficiency bonus, a strength of 20, dexterity of 16, constitution of 15, intelligence of 18, wisdom of 16, and a charisma of 14. Your size goes to large. Electivire is a big lad, quite large. And our movement speed stays at 30. But hopefully, you guys have enjoyed this return to the lab. I know I have. Last week got a little bit hectic. We've got a puppy running around. And yeah, and the tots are back. The tots are back in town. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope very much that you have enjoyed this episode. As always, please feel free to leave your comments down below, asking more questions for me to go over in these. And please be respectful of those that have not had a chance to watch the most recent session. Either put like a spoiler tag in a couple spaces down below or something. Just try to, if you have questions about those, just hide them, and we'll wait a couple weeks, and then maybe we'll start tackling some more recent stuff. But you guys are always respectful. I don't know why I'm asking this of you. You guys know what to do. But yeah, I've rambled long enough. Thank you very much, everybody. I love you all. And we'll see you on Thursday. Bye-bye!